So today is the 1st of August, and this is the members gathering, and we're going to be discussing when and where you may not need planning permission.
Yes. And we'll talk a little bit how to apply for planning permission as well. So you can't see the poll yet, can you? Like the results of it, I mean. No. Okay. I'll wait maybe another minute just to see if anyone else is going to join us. At the moment, 5 of the 9 people from England and 4 from Wales.
I think I might have registered twice. My name's Sally.
Oh, okay,
So
no worries.
I think I might have registered when I first saw it, and I registered last night. So
No
I put them both on a little while ago, one on the computer, one on my phone. So I've now turned the computer one off and just got the phone one on now, because I did one from each just to see if one worked better than the other. So
you added. Have you done the poll?
Yeah.
Has everyone done the poll? Yes. Okay. So yeah. 5 people from England, 4 people from Wales, more or less. So that's clear that I don't have to talk too much about Scotland and Northern Ireland. Share results. You see those? Yeah. Okay. Right. So I'm just going to share my screen and just explain who I am and explain how things are going to go. I'm Lucy Taylor, and my colleague Casey Grant is here with me today, co-hosting. She's going to be in the background, in some information in the chat and things. Yes, so as I said, we are recording this, so if you don't be seen by yourself by taking your camera off, please keep yourselves on silent until we have questions after I've spoken for 20 or 30 minutes. We'll have some questions at the end. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go along. And Katie will, at the end of the presentation, explain to me what some of the questions are. And we can also go live to people as well if they wish to put their hands up. So
Lucy, a couple of people in the chat are saying your sound quality is a bit erratic. So I'm wondering if it's your headphones. Do you
try it without the headphones?
Try it without the headphones, yeah. And just use your mic from your computer, because I think you might have had that before. So
it sounded fine to me.
It's a bit bad for me as well, though. 3 people are saying it's not great. So just keep talking and we can play around with it. So or you can play around with it maybe.
Yeah. I was just going to try and disconnect that. Yeah, I'm connected on the Bluetooth. Okay, I got it. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, you need to keep talking and then we can tell you.
Okay. Okay, we'll try that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me a second while I do that again. Slideshow from the beginning, and yes, so we're going to be talking about planning. uh, primarily in England and Wales, and what needs planning permission, and perhaps how to go about gaining planning permission bit as well. As I say, I'm Lucy Taylor. I've been working for Social Farms and Gardens, running the Community Land Advisory Service since 2013. My background's in town planning, used to work in planning departments and things, and then in 2013, 11 years ago, last month, I left to join Social Farms and Gardens to do this, and I haven't looked back. So yeah, Katie's here as well. She works with me on the class team, and we help groups with all their land access and planning inquiries in Wales. We've been funded in Wales since 2013, since I started, but we did have a service in England for a short time after that, but then the funding ran out, and we haven't really been able to provide much of a class service in England for a little while. We've got a bit of a service in Scotland, so we're looking for funding opportunities in England and Northern Ireland for class. But it's all around access to land for the community-led green space projects. So class is slightly different to the overall Social Farms and Gardens thing. We deal with all community green space projects, which could be woodlands, could be wildflower meadows, could be ponds, play areas, anything that's led by a community. But 90% of what we deal with is some type of community food growing, be it in a community garden, incredible edibles, or right up to sort of CSAs and care farms. And yeah, we help with leases, licenses, negotiating with landowners, and working out if you need planning permission. So the first point, some of this is a little bit complicated, but this is obviously recording. I can show you the slides. We've got a resource as well, which Katie might put in the chat for us on what needs planning permission. And it's written from a sort of Wales and England point of view a couple of years ago now, so it's pretty up to date, and it will take you through a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. So the first thing that you need to know is that growing food is agriculture. It's not development, and you don't need planning permission for it. So if a local planning authority asks you to change the use of land because they believe your allotment or your growing project or enterprise isn't agriculture, then you need to challenge them on that, and perhaps get in touch with us and we can help you make a case for the fact that what you're doing is agriculture, and it shouldn't be classed as a change of use of land. There's case law around this, so we are quite well versed in making a case that local planning authorities shouldn't be asking for changes of use of land for these types of projects, but it's fairly common. One up in Gwynedd, one up in the Vale of Glamorgan in the last couple of years. They've been asked to apply for a planning permission for allotments by the local planning authority, and now have all sorts of conditions they have to comply with. So we're talking about things that do enhance the local economy, the rural economy, and structures that are generally essential for the business or project to survive. And they could be shelters or packing sheds or little tool sheds, polytunnels, and greenhouses. So they're pretty essential structures for food growing operation. So we got over the fact that you don't need planning permission to grow food, but you may need planning permission for the structures on the land that you want to provide or have provided even. So these two pictures give you a sense of the first question that we need to ask is it development? And then
if it does meet this meaning of development, then you move on then to, is it permitted development? Does it have national planning permission, a notional sort of planning permission across the Wales or England to build structures of that type? And then if it doesn't meet either of those, you require planning consent, planning permission. So first off, is it development? So in my view, we could make a really good case that the picture on the right is something that wouldn't really meet the meaning of development. It's a very sort of small structure, easy to dismantle. It's not very cumbersome at all, and it's not particularly, sort of attached to the ground in any permanent sense. When you move to your compost toilets of the type on the left-hand side, those are the types of things I would expect people to be submitting a planning application for. So that's just a general distinction. It's case law, so it's a bit of a grey area sometimes, and local planning authorities can interpret it as they wish, but I don't think many planning authorities would be wanting to ask for planning applications for the compost toilet on the right-hand side here, because they're creating all sorts of a precedent for that. Vicky, you okay there?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I just wanted to come in at some point with the PGO community growing in Wales, which we achieved in 2005, because it's.
Oh, I lost you there.
Sorry, I'm muted. I thought I'd unmuted. I did. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to make sure that you bring in the permissive development rights in Wales for community growing, which brought in, I think, 2005, was it? Which we fought hard for, which have made a very big difference in many allotments. Several allotments I've been involved in, because they are there. We haven't been challenged, and there hasn't been pushback. Whereas if they hadn't been there, but I'll leave you to come to that.
That's okay.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
I'll come on to some of that stuff. Sorry. Yeah, no worries. So this is the first step that you need to look at as to whether a structure is development or not. Then, also, as well as structures, you've got your engineering operations. If you want to create a bit of a car park or a little bit of hard standing to come on your land, picture on the left, type of thing that needs planning permission. It's proper engineering operation with lots of imported material and some potential excavation there as well. The second one, is just a level track. They may have put some bark chips down at some point. Those sorts of things are not development. But you should speak to the local authority first. If you're wanting to create ponds, for instance, again, size and permanence, and sort of that general sort of impact in terms of their size on the landscape does come into it, as to whether it's just development even. And then we move on then to ask the question, okay, we think it's development. Is it permitted development, this national planning permission that people are given under certain types of uses or ownership of land that grants them planning permission without needing to submit a full planning application? Now, in most cases, all of these permitted development rights are available to most people, unless you're in particularly protected areas like potentially national parks and conservation areas, for instance, or in the grounds of a listed building. So nationally, across England and Wales, you can have enclosures. So you can have a gate or a fence up to a metre in height if you're adjacent to a road. And if you're not adjacent to a road, like on a side boundary, you can have up to 2 metres in height without needing planning permission. And also means of access can be done under permitted development rights as well, if it's in connection with a bit of hard standing. You can also have temporary uses of land under permitted development for 28 days. So that might be where you want to do occasional events on your piece of land. You can do 28 of those days in any one calendar year without needing planning permission. You may need a license from another department in local authority, but in terms of planning, you've got 28 days to do that. You should also check to see if there's any conditions on planning histories. If you've got a previous planning consent, there may be a condition preventing you doing that. But generally, permitted development rights for 28 days. And also you have permitted development rights for temporary structures while you're constructing something that has already got planning permission. So that's why sometimes you'll see a caravan in the grounds of a field where people are building, they got permission to build a new rural essential dwelling or something, or there's porta cabins next to a housing development. Those porta cabins are permitted development because they've got planning permission to build something else in connection with it. For clarity, you should ask the local authority first, but these are sort of generally the accepted rules on overall permitted development for most sectors. So, and we move on to farms. Now, in Wales and England, if you're on a farm over 5 hectares, you can, you have permitted development rights to build new structures. In Northern Ireland and Scotland, it's 0.4 of a hectare, which isn't even an acre. And we would like to see that threshold brought down in Wales, because 5 hectares is you know, it's huge in terms of what you can achieve. You know, it's well known now that people can get a decent living off 2 or 3 acres of horticultural land, for instance. So they shouldn't be penalised for needing essential structures really without having to apply for full planning permission. You do need to submit a prior approval application, and you should ask the local authority first. The prior approval application is a lower level of application compared to a full application. It costs less, well, generally, and it's just an assessment by the local authority to see if they need more information around the siting and design of the structure. Now, the rules as to, you know, if you can build new structures is under Part 6 of the General Permitted Development Order 1995. So in it, as I said, you can build new structures if you're on land over 5 hectares. There are certain criteria, so you should check. You know, you can't be within a certain distance of a road. But in Wales, the class service is here to help you. Now, one of the things that Vicky might have been referring to this, the Part 6A of the General Permitted Development Order was added in December 2020 under the sort of guidance of Mark Drakeford, who suggested that we shouldn't be asking allotment holders and community growers to have to provide to submit a full planning application if they want a greenhouse or a shed. So if you're on a what traditionally is known as a half-sized plot, full-size plot is 250 square meters of allotment growing space. That gives you an idea of the sizes of land that we're talking about. If you're over 125 square meters, your plot or your site, then you can have 1 shed and 1 greenhouse up to 6 meters squared, and less than 2.2 meters in height. Oh, let's go back. And if you're above 62 square meters, but not above 125, you can only have 1 shed or 1 greenhouse of those dimensions. And 62 square meters, you don't get any rights to build anything. You can't have those rights in protected areas of land like conservation areas and national parks, and it can't be within 16 meters of a river. Now, these rights, I think, were brought in to clarify, let's just add that person, to clarify that, you know, these are very small structures that are essential for allotment holders. In my view, I'd struggle to think of them actually being development at all if you look at this, the polytunnel in the background on this picture, that's about 6 square meters. I don't think that's a particularly permanent. Hi Pam, welcome. Yeah, you just put yourself on silent. That's great, thank you. We're just a little way in, but not much. You haven't missed much. Yeah, those sorts of structures are, then I would be able to make a good case that that isn't development. It's not very permanent. You could take it down really easily. It's not very cumbersome structure. But the rights do clarify into this part at 6A that one off is part 6 of the General Community Development Order is for agriculture. So it kind of confirms, therefore, that community growing and allotment is uses of land are agriculture. That was really helpful. And also that, just for clarity, you don't need planning permission for these really small structures. So that's what's happening in Wales. In recent years, we've got these new community rights for community growers and allotmenteers, and that's in addition to the agricultural ones to build new structures on farms over 5 hectares. You can extend existing buildings on land under 5 hectares, but you can't have new ones under permitted development.
Lucy, just in the chat, Sharon's asked, would growing trees and shrubs still be considered as agriculture?
Yes. Yes. So in England now, there in May of this year, just before the election, the Conservative government increased the growing area limit on new structures. It used to be 465 square meters. They moved it up to about 1,000, and then in May they moved it up again to 1,500 square meters. So that's quite, a decent sized structure that you could. Well, it's quite a big structure actually that you could put on your land, without planning permission. Just get a prior approval before you start development. Yeah, that's quite worrying because all these chicken sheds and everything that are quite controversial, they could actually have some smaller chicken sheds, 1,500 square meters, without even needing to apply for planning permission. They just need to get a prior approval from the local authority, which is a much lower test. If you're on an area of land under 5 hectares, background area limit has gone up to 1,200 for extensions. It was 465 square meters. So there's sizable increases. And in England, there's a lot of rights around changing the use of agricultural buildings, so sort of barns, to residential dwellings, and also to things like farm shops, and so there's quite wide ranging rights to change the use of agricultural buildings in England and in Scotland, but not so much. Well, we don't have those rights at all in Wales to change the use of agricultural buildings. Yeah, so always take advice, but obviously this is a bit of a quick run through of the general rights that are out there at the moment. So I'll just move on to this. How do we gain planning permission? Then we take some questions. Just looking at the time, how long have we got? Too bad. So when you sort of decide, realise that you need planning permission, you're submitting the full planning application. One of the starting points for every proposed development is it within the defined settlement boundaries of a village or town or city? Each town and city and village generally have a red line boundary around where the main residential and commercial buildings are. And outside of that, development is strictly controlled. So that's why we have some beautiful countryside across the UK, because people are not allowed to build anything in those areas outside the red line boundary without good reason, for instance, for agriculture or essential outdoor recreation. Always start right. If you want to put up a decent sized structure, communicate with your neighbours and your ward member. There'll be sort of your local county councillor. Speak to them and tell them that's what you're doing. It's best to do that sort of thing before they're informed statutorily by the local planning authority when you get your you submit your planning application, just in terms of good neighbourliness and to prevent, and just keep relationships good as you progress the planning application. You can do a statutory pre-application query. Most local authorities now do charge for pre-application advice. You can also get advice from the CLAS service here in Wales if that's where you're located. What we're generally talking about, community growing projects and care farms and CSAs, you really should be in your planning application doing a little covering letter or a little statement explaining the wide-ranging social, economic and environmental benefits of what you're doing. And if you're doing something like a CSA or a care farm, always describe it as a business that's adding to the rural economy. It's an agricultural business in for sustainable rural areas. So yeah, really sort of enhance any arguments around that, so that and these are fairly new concepts to planning officers. They might not have heard of this type of thing, but also explain what you're doing and what the activities are, and there is a farming enterprise or project. And that the buildings are absolutely essential for the purposes of agriculture. So I can think of a recent one down on the Gwent levels recently where they didn't provide enough justification for why they wanted the barn to be so big. You do need to say, well, we've got this bit of machinery that needs to go in, or we're wanting to use this for a bit. These are specific things that we need to store. We want to do some packing, have a packing shed in there, for instance. They will want to know that it is absolutely essential because you're in that countryside location. And think about your scale, your design and siting. Don't plonk it on the top of the brow of a hill. Think about putting it where there may be some hedging and trees to mask it in the environment, and also think about making sure the design of that building is of an agricultural nature rather than too domestic, like your domestic sheds that you might see in someone's back garden. And yeah, it's essential for the purpose of agriculture, but do you need it that big? If you're going for something large, explain why. And really justify the rationale behind that. Again, be clear about what you're applying for and why, and what the operations are on the site already, what you're doing and why you need it. Like I said about the openness of the countryside and the siting, always think about your protected species before you start any development. You do need to carry out biodiversity surveys if there is likely to be a presence of things like bats, dormice, badgers, newts, and protected orchards as well. So sometimes local authorities can ask you to submit this sort of information, and that's one of the reasons why people go for pre-application advice, so they know what they need to submit in advance, because these things can get costly. For instance, if you wanted to convert an old barn, then there may be bats there. There's certain times of year that you can do those surveys, and those surveys can cost a bit of money. So be well armed in advance. Surface water flooding in Wales, anything over 100 square metres or more than one dwelling, you have to submit a sustainable drainage application to the SAB, the Sustainable Drainage Authority, in the local authority. That is a separate department to planning. and you should have at least some pre-application discussions with that sustainable drainage department in the council about the structure that you're wanting to put up before you submit your full planning application, just in case there's something that they want you to do that might mean you need to change your proposals. Just also think about particularly protected areas like national parks, green belts and green wedges. There will be additional measures and criteria that protect those areas and the openness of them. So look in your local development plan in Wales or your local plan in England, and we can point you in the direction of those documents. So the planning portal is where everyone now submits their planning applications. It's pretty much always done online. You have to log in, you register and get a profile, and then you go through this planning portal document. They do ask quite a lot of questions, but it takes you through it in quite a step-by-step process. And we can help you with that if you need some advice. You will need plans. You need scale drawings of the works and a site location plan. You can get site location plans from people like these request a plan people via the planning portal. And you need to be able to show where that structure is going to be in the confines of the site, and scaled elevational drawings of the structure as well. And that's really useful at a pre-application stage. And when we're giving advice on planning at CLAS, it's important for us to see where you are in terms of the overall landscape of things. And it's difficult for us to advise if we don't have, those sorts of important bits of information. These are the fees in England. I think they're £95. They're £85 in Wales for agricultural development that's less than 465 square meters. Obviously, in England now that might go up to 1,500. The fees do change year on year, so it's best to check them. I just put in Wales planning fees into Google, and the information will come up that you will need to pay a fee. And then finally, there may be other things you want to do on your site, specific, like with care farming, for instance, or if you're wanting to open a farm shop or do some training. Just generally, they wouldn't amount to change of use that you need planning permission for if you keep the numbers low and it's ancillary to the main use. So just wanted to have a little bit of a training area for people to come in, maybe 4 or 5 people once a week, sort of thing. That's not going to be operational development that amounts to a change of use where you'd need to apply. But if you're having high numbers of visitors, lots of people coming by car, that can spark interest in the local community, and they may report it to the enforcement officers at the planning authority, which leads to a higher level of scrutiny. They do have a duty to investigate things that are reported to them, but they're not going around the countryside looking. Just to add that, but if they get a report from a member of the public or a politician, ward member, they have to investigate it. Speak to your neighbours, be friendly with them, and this is true of the vast majority of community-led growing and farming projects. You are on pretty good terms with your neighbours, but always make friends with them to make sure they're happy with what you're doing and the like, so that they're not going to be sort of constantly suspicious of you and reporting you to the likes of the enforcement officers in the planning authority. So yeah, that's minor uses, ancillary uses. The bigger in scale that use gets, the more it's likely to need a separate planning application for change of use. So keep things small scale and ancillary. So I've banged on a bit too long, probably. Yeah. That's our email, and that's the website. I think this is an opportunity to take questions. People have them. I'll stop sharing. Any in the chat?
Yeah, there are quite a few in the chat actually. So I thought we could invite people to read out the questions if they would like to. Sally, you've got a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want me to read them for you, or would you like to ask them directly?
Yeah, I'm in a cafe actually. It's probably easier if you read them out if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so yeah, Sally was asking, is there something about it being movable? So this was quite early on when you were speaking, Lucy. So in terms of what's permitted and what's not permitted.
Yeah. So there are certain structures that you can move around the site from season to season, and that does give you a little bit more of a case to say that it's not development. So yeah, there aren't really particularly permitted development rights, but it is a contributing factor to suggest that the structure isn't development and therefore doesn't need planning permission. But each case on its merits, we'd have to have a look at it and just sort of assess it to see what we think and maybe get an opinion from the local authority. Yes, it's being movable is one of the factors that contributes to whether it's development or not.
Did you have objects in mind, Sally, particularly, or was that just a general question?
Yeah, it's largely like a chicken run and things like that. So animals. Is there anything special about animals by any chance?
There's something around livestock and slurry, but that's for larger scale farming enterprises. Yeah, I've seen things where you have sort of movable structures for pigs to cultivate the land, dig up the land, and chickens do similar, I suppose. And chicken runs and houses have been written in case law, some famous case law around, where cases have been won to say that depending on their scale and nature, that they're not development. So that does sound like it might have a good case there for it not to be development, but I'd have to have a look at the scale of it, and how long it's staying in one place and those sorts of things.
Okay.
Does that help for now?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And my other thing was just around the differences in England, because I'm in England, not Wales.
Yeah. So you've got more rights in England, really, apart from those community development, community growers' rights. But in my view, those community growing rights of structures up to 6 meters squared, a 2x3 little polytunnel or shed, it's not really development anyway. So it just clarifies things in Wales more. But you could, I would say, make a good case that something of that, how small it is, it's they shouldn't be asking for planning permission. If they ask for planning permission for structures, every 6 meters squared structure across the UK, there'd be in all sorts of bother. They don't want to ask for unnecessary planning applications, and it's not in the public interest to do that. So you can make a case that those small structures aren't development. You in England, you have more rights if you're on if you're wanting if you're on a farming type enterprise. What type of operation are you running?
Yeah, I'm afraid there are two. So one is Incredible Edibles, which is basically very, very urban. It's like near a tram stop, and it belongs to the council, and we just are allowed to use it. So I've got a feeling we're probably not allowed to have anything there. We have like compost bins and things. And the other one is at the university on the site that was used for a sort of occupational health purpose. So that one, we already have a shed, and it's the university private land, and they let us use it. So I think those probably are not subject anyway to planning. It's just that we would like to kind of expand it a little bit. There's a bit of land the university owns out in Clifton that we're hoping to get a bit of, like probably buy a bit of if possible. So that would be different, because that would be kind of semi-rural.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it would be land under 5 hectares. You could extend new structures without planning permission, but anything above about 6 meters squared, then you might for a new structure, you probably need to apply for full planning permission on that new area of land. But permission of the owner of the land, if they're a local authority or public body, is obviously separate to your planning. So ask the owner first, and see what they think of it. You know, for the land that you're already on.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
So Katie's got a question. Katie, did you want to ask it, or do you want me to ask it?
Yeah, I may. I've got quite a few questions, if I'm honest. So we are a community-owned farm, 36 acres, and we are in an AOMB. So
Okay.
Everything a little bit more complicated, if not a lot more. So the first question I put up was about allotments. So we have an existing field dedicated to allotments in the AOMB. We don't have any sheds on there at all at the moment, and we're under increasing pressure from the allotmenteers to allow them to make their own sheds.
Whereabouts are you?
In Cornwall, West
Okay.
Cornwall, near St. Just.
So this is a community-owned allotment site, is it?
It's a community-owned farm. So we own the farm, and we have one of the fields dedicated to allotments. And yeah, they have no sheds at the moment. I think we've given them a rule, but they have to be really, really low to the ground, like storage.
Okay.
Very low storage. But they really want compost toilets. They really want a shed, either for each allotment or one communal shed that's bigger. For two.
Yeah, that's fair enough, isn't it? You know, it's very common for those types of growing activities to need some sort of compost toilet. Did you see the one that I put up in one of the first slides? There's very small compost toilets.
But I'm worrying about.
Sorry?
It's the fact that we're in the AOMB that I'm worried about.
Well, if it's not development, the planning authority has no control over it at all. But the decision as to whether it is development does come down to them. But what I'm saying is you can present a really good case, or we can help you do that, to say that these very small structures under 6 meters squared are the types of development they shouldn't be asking for permission for, because it's not in the public interest. And case law and case history is such that it's been proven that they, because of their nature of scale and easiness to take off the site, etc., that they're not development, so they don't really come under the control of the local planning authority.
Okay, that's helpful. So
you could have, like, I was talking to someone earlier on today in Mid Wales, and they've got some very small plots of 62 meters squared. So I suggested to them, well, maybe you want to say you can have a shed or a greenhouse. And then if they're on a larger site, which would be a double plot on their site, 125 square meters, they can have both. They could have a tool shed and a greenhouse. But they're also thinking of going down the lines of doing a communal storage shed, a bigger thing, but that's going to need planning permission.
We're in the AOMB, that's a bit academic. It's about whether or not it's development, and if it's not of a scale that counts as development, they could have one each.
Yeah, so I'm just suggesting it as a good rule of thumb, really, on those smaller sites that are under 125 square meters, the plots now, that one structure, and then on the slightly bigger ones above 125 square meters, they could have two structures, because that's what's written in our legislation in Wales, and it's kind of reaffirming, really, that these structures aren't really development. And I know you haven't got it in England, but it's a good rule of thumb for assessing whether something is worth the local authority being bothered by. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's so helpful. I can't tell you how many times we've been around the house on this. And then the other question I put up was about on the temporary structures. It just sparked a thought. We're currently trying to put through an application for energy efficiency measures, and one eagle-eyed person on the committee has suggested, what about if we have photovoltaics or some kind of mobile structure? So it's almost like a technicality that they're on wheels. Does that help?
Right. Yeah, potentially. There's a specific area of for solar array. If they're freestanding, there's a specific area of permitted development rights. So maybe I can send you some links on that separately. If you want to just email me, Lucy at farmgarden, LUCIE at farmgarden.org.uk, and I can bring up the links for you.
Amazing, thank you. I've got loads of other questions, but I think I should let other people go first, and maybe
we'll speak again.
Okay,
that's fine.
You.
Yeah, don't worry.
Leo would like to ask a couple of questions.
Hi there. First of all, thank you so much this afternoon. It's been really, really useful. So I'm a member of the committee for the Dog Athlone allotment community in Snowdonia or Erie National Park. We have a really small community allotment whereby nobody has an individual plot. It is one communal allotment and everyone joins in.
Right.
It's new. We set it up in April of this year. We've been really lucky. The council have granted us a lease on the land, and we've also got a fairly hefty grant to set everything up from Gwynedd Authority, which is fantastic. Because we're in a national park, planning's controlled by the National Park Authority, and if I'm being brutally honest, we just seem to get, it's very much computer says no. It's a very binary answer when we speak to the National Park. We currently don't have a shed. We have one of those tool locker things that we bought from B&Q and plonked that on to keep all of our tools in. We've been advised by the National Park Authority that to put a shed on the site, it's got to go through full planning, and they quoted us something ridiculous like about 900 quid to go through the full planning process. We don't have that money. We might just about scrape money to buy a shed. We just simply want to pop a shed to keep our tools in. What do we do?
You need to speak to me.
Yeah,
I can help you submit that, and we'll make sure that there's a very fine line between a really expensive application and a very cheap one. 85 quid to sort of lots of money. So we'll have a look at that. And congratulations on accessing your land and everything. It sounds like you should go forward for a class award.
Thank you. So it's very early days. We've got 15 people partaking at the moment. It's a great asset to the community. We just want to make it a bit more accessible to people, and obviously have places to put our tools and our kit. So and
likewise.
The grant was there to set it up, which we've done, but now the coffers are virtually empty. So it's a case of beg, borrow, and scrounge whatever we can from wherever we can. So, Lucy, if I'll drop you an email. Again, I don't want to
drop me an email. Kate, you might want to put in the chat as well the request for support form.
Just done that link.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm not supposed to tell people my email address correctly. I'm supposed to get them to fill out the form. I keep on forgetting. Katie tells me off. Yes. Right. Well, what else?
Pam, I think, has left now, but she did ask, is legislation different in a national park regarding development and agriculture? So that's sort
Yeah,
of covered that a
yeah,
little
you don't
bit,
have as many permitted development rights, and they're very sensitive in national parks. But the principle of whether it's development or not doesn't matter where you are. So those very small structures of sort of around 6 square meters, we can make a case that they're not development and shouldn't need permission, but you have very little permitted development rights in national parks. They're nearly always precluded, so just have to. They're just a bit more sensitive and special, so we have to be on our best behaviour and make sure we do everything right. But yeah, with no problem in terms of supporting you on that.
Yeah, Sally in Nottingham has just asked about our service in terms of is that for Wales only?
I can give you some guidance, Sally. I'd hate to think you're going down a rabbit hole. So if you're in England, obviously I can't go submitting planning applications and stuff like that because I'm funded by Welsh Government, but I can give you some guidance and the best way to approach things.
That's very kind. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I know, are there any more sort of specific questions? I know that Vicky had put a kind of reflection in the chat, but before we go to a reflection, are there any more comments? We've only got 5 minutes left. But if there's some specific question for Lucy, then now is the time. And then if not, we can get Vicky to share her musings. One message in the chat. Okay. UPVC windows, doors in an AONB. That was Katie again.
Yeah, it's usually conservation areas and listed buildings that their local authority are very concerned about with changing from traditional wood to UPVC. But yeah, if you want me to double check that, they may have like a supplementary planning guidance document in your local authority area that sort of says firstly you should be looking at more traditional materials than UPVC. But my familiarity is that it's in conservation areas and listed buildings. But it depends on where you are and what planning guidance they've got on that subject.
Okay, and then finally, do large polytunnels need planning?
Nearly always, yes. Yeah. I've heard of these movable structures where one group managed to get permission for something, but these large polytunnels that are out there, generally you're keeping them in the same place all year round. They take an age to put up and an age to take down. They're pretty cumbersome and they do have quite a big impact in the landscape. So, yeah, generally, yes.
Vicky, would you like to share your thoughts in the last
just
2 minutes?
They're not that magical. It's so important for community gardens to be able to have a single larger shed, a single larger polytunnel, because
yes, it makes sense.
And we just need to get the rules tweaked.
Yes,
as long as it's done. Yeah,
these smaller sheds that cumulatively they have more of an impact on the landscape than if you were to apply for full planning permission for one communal shed. It doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, and it can be discreet and done nice materials, sited and screened and have clematis growing or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just realised I'm not plugged in. I thought I was. One back.
Just how to take that forward to get that addressed, because it is not nobody's priority in government. It doesn't seem exciting enough, but maybe that might be their channel to make a small tweak somewhere. maybe a
We-
civil servant could do
Food,
it,
Food
propose it.
Division at Welsh Government have just done a planning barriers study on agriculture, and there's a bit of an exercise going on at the moment around improving certainly planning policy Wales, and making it easier and enabling more sort of horticultural development. Trying to get permitted development rights changed in Wales has been the bane of my life for 10 years. They just don't want to change them because they think it's going to be a massive task, but
It's ridiculous.
it's not. You know, Scotland just changed it from 5 hectares threshold down to 0.4 of a hectare.
Wow.
And, you know, it's such a shame, really.
Yeah, it's finding the right politician with the right clout or the right civil servant. It's finding the right person who gets it and can then push it through is usually the thing, isn't it? But knowing who,
yes,
yeah, I mean, we need people inside. This is one of the reasons I was putting forward that other proposal. But yeah, that's all. That's enough said on that.
Okay, thanks.
So it's bang on 5 o'clock.
Brilliant.
So yeah, if anyone left wants to get in touch with us, then yes, I think we've given the details of how to reach us. But yeah, do send us an email with any of your land access questions, wherever in the country you are. We'll try and help.
We will try and help, yes. Yeah, well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And on this hot day, you are released to go and spend some time in the outdoors.
Thank you, Lucy. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye.
We was telling Leo Lloyd to get a